They say your first business is just practice. I didn't know that when I sank 50 grand in a mine and watched it crash and burn. This is the story of how I lost $50,000 in less than a year, and why it turned out to be the most valuable education I've ever had. I was 29 when I finally pulled the trigger. For years, I dreamed of being my own boss, of building something from scratch, owning my time, and never having to ask for vacation days again. I'd read the books, listen to every business podcast out there, and convince myself I was ready. The idea? A boutique coffee shop. Not just any cafe, an experience. Brick walls, vintage lights, pour-over stations, a cozy reading nook in the back. I had it all mapped out. Everyone said it was risky. That coffee shops had thin margins. That overhead would kill me. But I had saved for years. I'd built up $20,000 in savings, took a $15,000 personal loan, and maxed out 2 credit cards for another $15,000. $50,000 in total. My life savings. My line of credit. My future. And I believed it was worth it. I found a small space downtown, great foot traffic, old hardwood floors, and a landlord desperate to fill it. I signed a lease, hired a designer, paid for permits, plumbing, inspections, espresso machines, furniture, you name it. Within 2 months, the shop looked beautiful, better than I'd imagined. Then came the reality. The first week, I had about 30 to 40 customers a day, mostly friends, family, and curious passersby. Sales were low, but I told myself, it's the opening phase. Word will spread. Week 2, traffic dropped. I started offering discounts. Free muffins with every coffee. Punch cards. Local flyers. Nothing moved the needle. I realized quickly that I knew how to make a beautiful space, but I had no idea how to run a business. I was doing everything myself. Opening at 6 a.m., closing at 8 p.m., mopping the floors, handling inventory, running payroll, fixing the Wi-Fi, updating the website, replying to angry Yelp reviews at midnight. After month 2, I was mentally fried. I hired 2 part-timers. They helped, but now payroll took a bite out of my already thin budget. I stopped paying myself. Rent was $2,500 a month. Electricity was $400. Supplies cost around $3,000 per month. I was barely breaking $5,000 in sales. My biggest mistake? I ignored marketing. I believed that if you build it, they will come. They didn't. I didn't set up social media properly. I didn't collaborate with local influencers. I didn't understand my audience. I didn't track data. I was just winging it. By month 4, I had $800 in the bank and bills totaling over $6,000. I called my dad for the first time in years. Asked if I could borrow $2,000. He said no. It hit me hard. By month 5, I was robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'd maxed out every credit card, skipped 2 rent payments, and started ignoring invoices from suppliers. Every morning, I woke up with a racing heart and a stomach full of dread. I still showed up, still made coffee, still smiled. But inside, I was cracking. I tried everything to pull the business out of free fall. I launched a loyalty program. I printed 500 flyers and handed them out personally. I offered live music on Fridays and even let a friend host a poetry night. But all of it barely made a dent. One night, I sat in the back of the shop long after closing, staring at the POS system. I'd made $137 that day. My expenses? Over $300. That was the moment I realized this wasn't going to work. I couldn't keep digging deeper. I couldn't keep pretending the money would magically appear. I'd read that businesses take time to grow, but this wasn't slow growth. It was slow death. The emotional toll was heavier than the financial one. I started avoiding friends. I didn't want to admit how bad it was. When people asked how the shop was going, I smiled and said, "It's picking up." It wasn't. My girlfriend, who had supported me from day one, began to pull away. She didn't say it directly, but I could feel the shift, the tension, the disappointment. By month 6, the landlord gave me a final notice: pay or vacate. I looked at my balance sheet. I was $48,000 in the hole. And then I made the dumbest move of all. I took out one last high-interest personal loan, $5,000 at 28% APR, just to survive one more month. I told myself, one more month and something will click. It didn't. At the end of that month, the espresso machine broke. It would have cost $2,300 to fix. That was the final straw. I closed early that day, turned off the lights, and sat in the dark. For the first time since opening, I cried. Not quiet, cinematic tears, ugly, bitter sobs. I felt like a failure, like I'd let down everyone who believed in me, and myself most of all. The next morning, I called the landlord, told him I was walking away. He didn't sound surprised. I emailed my 2 employees and let them go. I sold what equipment I could to cover part of what I owed. The rest went into collections. I walked out of the shop with a cardboard box in my arms and exactly $87 in my checking account. It was over, and I was broke. The weeks after I closed the coffee shop were some of the darkest in my life. I moved back into my parents' house, something I swore I'd never do. I was 30, broke, jobless, and drowning in debt. My phone was blowing up with collections calls. One of the credit card companies even sent a court notice. Worse than the money was the shame, the feeling of complete and public failure. I didn't just lose money. I lost my identity. I wasn't the entrepreneur anymore. I was just the guy who tried and flopped. I stopped answering texts. I stopped going out. I spiraled. But the thing about hitting rock bottom is eventually you stop falling. And one night, lying awake at 2 a.m., I had a realization that honestly saved me. No one's coming to save you, but no one's stopping you either. It was quiet, simple, but it hit me hard. I made mistakes, yes, but I was still alive. I still had time, and I still had lessons. The next day, I made a decision. I was going to own the failure and learn from every bit of it. I started writing down everything I did wrong, like a postmortem, a full, brutally honest autopsy of the business. I wrote about not knowing my market, overspending on aesthetics, not value, having no marketing plan, doing everything alone, taking on debt I didn't understand, ignoring early warning signs. That list turned into a kind of roadmap, not of success, but of what not to do again. I also started reading again, not the startup hype books, but real business fundamentals, cash flow, cost control, operations, sales psychology. I forced myself to relearn everything, but this time with scars to guide me. To pay the bills, I took a job at a local cafe. Ironic, I know. I told the owner right away that I'd run my own place. To my surprise, she said, "Good. You'll know how to respect the grind." She was right. I did. I scrubbed floors, steamed milk, cleaned drains, all over again. But this time, I watched how she ran things. Her systems, her margins, her priorities. It was humbling, but I was rebuilding something I'd lost, discipline. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, a regular customer at that cafe struck up a conversation with me. Turned out he ran a local marketing agency and needed help with writing content for small business clients. He asked if I'd ever written before. I said, only about how I blew 50 grand. He laughed and hired me part-time to help with blog content. At first, I was nervous. I'd never done paid writing before, but I treated it seriously. And over time, I realized something. I was good at it. I understood small business pain. I could write like a real person. I knew what owners struggled with because I had lived it. Fast forward 6 months, and I was making more from writing than from the cafe. I quit the job and went freelance full-time. Was it glamorous? No, but it was stable. And every invoice I sent felt like a tiny piece of myself being rebuilt. 1 year after closing the shop, I had paid off the highest interest loan, negotiated 2 credit card settlements, and had almost $6,000 saved. Not much, but for the first time in a long time, I was breathing again. 2 years after losing everything, I had a moment I'll never forget. I was sitting at my desk, my own desk, in a tiny rented co-working space. I had just finished a project for a new client, hit send on the invoice, and looked at my QuickBooks dashboard. That month, I'd earned over $8,000, more than I ever made in any job or business before. And I wasn't selling coffee. I wasn't running payroll or fixing espresso machines at midnight. I was using my brain and my story. That moment didn't feel like victory. It felt like clarity. Everything I went through, the failure, the shame, the debt, it hadn't been for nothing. I'd learned to be resilient, to rebuild, to take ownership of my mistakes and turn them into tools. I also realized something else. I was never supposed to be a coffee shop owner. That was just the road that got me here. People think failure is the opposite of success. It's not. Failure is the tuition you pay to learn what success actually looks like. And $50,000? Yeah, that was one hell of a tuition bill. Looking back, I wouldn't change it. I needed to lose that money to learn discipline. I needed to fall flat to realize how important planning is. I needed to be humbled to rediscover what I was actually good at. Today, I help small businesses, the kind I used to be, tell their stories better. I write content, I consult, and sometimes I even get invited to speak to young entrepreneurs. The irony? Every time I tell this story, someone in the audience comes up afterward and says, "Thanks. I thought I was the only one." You're never the only one. Everyone fails. Some quietly, some publicly. But the ones who grow from it, they're the ones worth listening to. So if you're out there right now, nursing your wounds from a failed dream, here's what I want you to know. You are not done. You're not broken. You are becoming. Keep going. I lost $50,000, but I gained something more valuable: clarity, courage, and control over my future. If this story hit home for you, subscribe for more real money journeys. The good, the bad, and the brutally honest. This is Balance Broke, and we're just getting started.